So it's Ralph and Lahni back with another minute or 10 on Astro Tips. And so we're going to talk a little bit about rulerships and what rulerships mean.
Yeah, rulerships are all about how the planets use a sign well or not so well or just downright poorly. And each one of the major planets, and by the major planets out to Saturn, have two signs that relate to them. And that does not include the sun and the moon, which are not considered planets. The sun and the moon are considered lights. Always love that. But the planets each have a masculine and a feminine sign.
And we go by the ancient rulerships. Yeah. There are some modern rulerships, but for today we're just going to be talking about the ancient rulerships, which just deal with the visible planets, not the outer planets. The outer planets are Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto, and we're going to talk about them on another time.
Right. And the concept is in astrology is actually called the dignities. How is the planet dignified? And we will work our way out from Mercury. Now Mercury, of course, the messenger of the gods, has two signs. It's got Gemini, which is the masculine one, you know, the one with the twins, and the other one is Virgo. And there's a certain real relationship between these two. I mean, they both, it's funny, you will go to places and find a lot of Virgos and Geminis working in the same place. They like the same kind of businesses.
Well, and so Mercury is about communication. And these two signs are great communicating signs. I think most people are familiar with the fact that communication can be strained when Mercury goes retrograde. It's kind of like, you know, holding his hand too tight in a toy store or something like that. But they're both cerebral kinds of signs to a certain extent, having to do with the nervous system and the brain and the way we communicate. You know, Mercury in Gemini is more interested in communicating what it thinks to you. And in Virgo, it's more interested in getting the conversation going between...
Receiving information in.
And receiving, exactly.
And as we go through the 12 through the 12 signs and the and the rulerships, you'll find that the masculine sign related to each planet, it tends to be the more externalized, and the feminine one tends to be the more internalized.
So moving on to the rulerships of Venus, her masculine rulership is the sign of Libra, and the feminine rulership is the sign of Taurus.
Right. Now, Libra is about partnership, and it's traditional that the man proposes to the woman. Right, and then the woman can either accept or say, not so much. So, but the other side of it is Taurus, and Taurus is an earth sign, and it's kind of the good earth. It's the all the wonderful foods, it's all the wonderful fabrics and the wonderful colors and the flowers, and it has to do with, and this is one of the reasons why women traditionally were the people who controlled the foods of the family, but also many times controlled the money of the family too.
And definitely the receiving end of the Venus energy, because it appreciates beauty. It's something that you take in. It appreciates food. It's something that you take in, where Libra has to do with creating balance. So it's a creative energy.
Where masculine side of it, men are many times prized for their physical aggressiveness and their strength. Women are oftentimes prized for their beauty.
And even though they're called masculine and feminine, to call them just men and women or is not really correct, because they are just opposite ends of the same energy, expressing in either a yang or a yin way, either receptive or dynamic. So now we're ready to move on to Mars, who also has two rulerships, one masculine, one feminine. The masculine rulership of Mars is Aries, and the feminine rulership of Mars is Scorpio.
Yes, and Aries is the springtime. It's when the energy is coming up out of the earth. Scorpio is near the end of the year. It's really the end of, it's the transition from late fall. And it has a lot to do with how we as a group use power, you know, as we kind of gather our resources for the winter time.
You can actually express the dynamic and the receptive by, you know, Aries energy is the sprouting of the plant, and then when it decays and retracts back into the earth, that's the Scorpio energy. So you can see that right there, the yin and the yang of it.
as you store things away in their secret places. And Scorpio is always about secrets, and it's about where are you putting your food, or where are you hiding your resources.
Or simply hidden under the earth.
Exactly.
Waiting to sprout again the next spring.
Exactly.
In Aries.
And then after Mars, we have Jupiter. And Jupiter is, the largest planet in the solar system, and the masculine energy for that is Sagittarius. It's a very expressive energy. It's very athletic. And then the feminine rulership of that is Pisces, which is a very spiritual energy.
And again, receptive.
Yes.
It's intuitive and it's emotional and it's idealistic. And these are all things that are not very dynamic adjectives to describe an action. Whereas in Sagittarius rules the muscle. So you can see where it's really an active-based energy.
Yeah. Now, Saturn is the restrictor, whereas Jupiter expands, Saturn restricts. The masculine ruler of that is Aquarius, and the feminine rulership of that is Capricorn. And modern astrologers many times will actually equate Aquarius to Uranus, and they'll equate Pisces to Neptune, and Scorpio to Pluto. This was a misunderstanding. This was basically because at the time when this information was becoming available again and when they were starting to translate the materials, they really didn't understand how the set of dignities were designed, and they were based upon a geometric relationship that exists within the circle of the horoscope. And it has to do with how you might say the spiritual architecture of our world. But when you understand this, you understand that each of these visible planets, and these are the planets you can see without a telescope, have these polarities. And these other planets are, to a certain extent, outliers. They are beyond the point that you can see with your naked eye. And they're big generational planets. For instance, Pluto is 260 or 70 years to go around the sun. That's a slow transit. That's not like something that we feel on a personal basis.
Exactly. That energy is not accessible to us on a daily basis. We have to really look back over a protracted period of time to see what that energetic signature really meant from start to finish for a complete cycle. So the more personal planets are the ones that we can, as you said, see without a telescope.
No, your Saturn takes 28 years to go around, and when you get to the 28 years, you get to what's called your Saturn return. For people, even in ancient times, many people experienced major components of that, but Uranus, that's about 84 years. Well, at that time in the past, most people never made it to 84 years.
Nobody's really had a calculated, anticipated lifespan of that amount of time either. So it's not an expectation of the universe, at least until we evolve a little bit further in our health structures.
Now, each one of these planets also has what's called an exalted sign. And it means that when that planet is in a different sign, there's a particular sign where it is treated like an honored guest. For instance, Mercury is exalted in Aquarius. Venus is exalted in Pisces. Mars is exalted in Capricorn. Jupiter is exalted in Cancer. And Saturn is exalted in Libra. And when you combine these together, you get these wonderful geometric shapes, which we call the sacred triangles. And we actually use in our geomantic and feng shui work.
Exactly.
And they're very, very powerful. Now, the sun rules Leo. The moon rules Cancer, and they have exaltations as well. The sun is exalted in Aries, the moon is exalted in Taurus. And these are very strong relationships. And traditionally it was believed that the sun and moon both ruled
both of those signs, Leo and Cancer.
Leo and Cancer.
Yeah.
So it's a wonderful system, and we hope you find this illuminating.
So don't worry, there won't be a test. We'll see you next time.